Welcome to this explainer. Listen, have you ever felt like you're doing absolutely everything right? You know the drill. You got the degree, you landed a solid job, you put in the hours, and yet somehow you still feel completely financially stuck? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to uncover exactly why so many hardworking folks feel like they are just playing endless financial catch-up, and more importantly, how to actually break that cycle. Let me just throw a question out there right out of the gate. Why does working hard constantly feel like falling behind? Seriously, your frustration is so incredibly valid. The truth is, society has quietly split into two very, very different financial realities. So if you're feeling stuck, trust me, it's not your work ethic. It's simply because you might be playing the wrong game.
Okay, let's dive into this. The modern economy doesn't actually reward hard work. It rewards ownership. Period. Think about it. If you're a wage earner, your wealth is tied strictly to your income, right? And we all know income is just getting squeezed and squeezed by inflation. But consider asset holders for a second. Because their wealth is tied to appreciating assets, they're actually getting richer in the background while they sleep. The economy heavily favors ownership over pure effort.
Now, a few generations back, the old standard script worked beautifully. You got an education without taking on crippling debt, and you landed a stable job. Back then, it literally felt like a firm handshake could buy you a 3-bedroom house. Just showing up to work naturally built automatic equity and guaranteed a solid pension. A single income could comfortably support a whole family, no crazy side hustles required.
But here's the kicker. Nobody sent out a memo that the rules changed. Almost overnight, we shifted from this era of collective stability into an era of total personal responsibility. Job security pretty much vanished, benefits shrank down to almost nothing, and getting ahead stopped being the natural, guaranteed outcome of just working hard. Retirement became this really complicated, highly personal project.
So, what happens when you try to follow that old path today? Well, you fall straight into the liability trap. People are starting out with massive, sometimes overwhelming education debt, which forces them into lower-paying jobs just to survive the month. And this creates a domino effect. It delays those huge life milestones, like buying a home or starting a family, because instead of building assets, you're just accumulating liabilities. You're constantly pushed backwards into playing financial catch-up.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really profound point. There is still one economy, but people are experiencing it two very different ways. If you think about it, stagnant wages make every single year feel harder and harder. But on the flip side, if you hold compounding assets, those exact same economic conditions are quietly multiplying your wealth in the background. Your progress entirely depends on which side of the fence you're on.
So how do we actually fix this? Well, it requires small, consistent shifts. We've put together a highly actionable 5-step roadmap to transition you from the wage earner's game to the asset holder's game. Step 1, create margin. Step 2, protect income growth. Step 3, convert labor. Step 4, let time work. And finally, Step 5, understand it's worth it. Let's get right to it.
Starting right off with Step 1, create margin.
Now, before you can rush out and start chasing ownership, you absolutely have to protect yourself from that liability trap we just talked about. Margin is basically your financial buffer between you and being totally broke. Because let's face it, life is going to throw surprises at you. Car repairs, unexpected medical bills, the whole shebang. Without that margin as a foundational defense mechanism, you'd be forced to sell off the very assets you're trying so hard to build just to keep your head above water.
The target here is pretty specific. You want to save up 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Tucking this specific amount away ensures that a single random setback doesn't just completely erase all your hard-earned progress. Honestly, it's the absolute prerequisite to everything else we're about to do.
Which brings us to Step 2, protect income growth. Here, we really need to address a massive misconception. A higher income absolutely does not automatically equal greater wealth. Look, I get it. It is incredibly tempting to celebrate a raise by, say, leasing a fancy luxury car or moving into a nicer apartment. But if you spend every single extra dollar from a raise on upgrading your standard of living, you will literally never have anything left over to build real wealth. The secret? Keep your living costs flat and use that extra money to buy assets instead.
Let's move to Step 3, convert labor into ownership, and see how this builds on what we've covered.
This right here is the absolute core secret of the wealthy. You must convert your daily effort into permanent equity. Think of it like this. Labor requires you to constantly trade your time for money.
If you stop working, well, the money stops. But ownership? Ownership is kind of magical because it entirely disconnects your time from your labor. When you buy assets, like index funds or real estate, they basically become your personal 24/7 background workforce. They don't sleep.
Just remember this: labor pays you once. Ownership consistently pays you. Making this vital shift to the asset side is quite literally the only way to genuinely get ahead and finally free yourself from the limits of a 24-hour day.
Moving right along to step 4, let time do its thing. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly it visualizes the massive, life-changing power of compound interest. You see, the new economy does not reward get-rich-quick schemes. It rewards patience and consistency. Let's look at the numbers. An initial $100,000 investment grows to about $160,000 after 5 years. I mean, that's nice, but it's not exactly life-changing, right? But if you stay patient for 30 years, no way. It explodes to $1.7 million. Time does all the heavy lifting. You just have to get out of its way.
And finally, step 5. Understand it's worth it.
Look, I totally know it can feel like the system is rigged in favor of people who already have money. But the truth is, this game is still entirely winnable. Winning really just comes down to making 3 daily, intentional choices. Live below your means, convert your labor into appreciating assets, and stay patient for the long haul. That is exactly how you stop playing the unwinnable wage earner's game and actually start acting like an owner.
You now know the rules of this new game, and you've seen the profound difference between relying on stalled wages versus building compounding assets. Yes, the transition takes serious discipline, but the roadmap is crystal clear. So I'll leave you with this. Which economy will you choose to participate in starting tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.